Stephen Hurahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video we're going to take a look at 6 unique and creative differentiation examples so that you have something to call on when you get stuck into building your own brand and defining the position that you want to take in the market. Now, as you probably already know, there's far more to building a brand than simply going out and creating a brand identity. There are many different disciplines that you need to understand and master, and at the core of that is brand strategy. Now, at the core of brand strategy, you have positioning and your differentiation strategy. And branding is nothing if not a strategy to differentiate yourself from your competitors. You want to show why your brand is different and then tell your audience why that difference is so valuable to them. And that's what the differentiation strategy is. But to find an effective differentiation strategy is not that easy. It's a bit of a creative game. So here's a look at 6 unique differentiation strategies for your creative juices. First example I have for you is Huawei. Now, Huawei carved out a strategic position for themselves, not with a difficult to pronounce name, but with a high quality and low cost differentiation approach. They entered the market as an unknown low cost mobile technology brand, and their differentiation strategy focused on producing high quality products at a low cost to the consumer. Now, this offered their customers a low cost alternative to the likes of Samsung and Apple, and it did help the brand to carve out a position in the mind of their audience as a quality but low cost provider, and that's how they established themselves in the mind of their audience. Now, although Huawei has gone on to steal market share from the 2 biggest players in Samsung and Apple in the smartphone market through their product innovation, the low quality stigma of that position has really hampered them, and it's been difficult for them to shake. So although this is a great example of how a brand has made it work for them, you should have a longer game plan if you're going to go down this low cost road. So how does this apply to your brand and the brand that you're building? Can you go out and offer your audience a low cost option? Differentiation strategy example number 2 is the Dollar Shave Club, and their strategic approach was to come out and take on a giant. Now, the Dollar Shave Club broke out as an unknown startup in the men's razor blade market, and at the time no one had a clue who the Dollar Shave Club was, but they came out and they pointed the finger at the industry giant Gillette nonetheless. Now, if you think that might be difficult to apply in your market, then think of this. Gillette had over 80% of the men's razor market. So industry giants don't come much bigger than Gillette, but Dollar Shave Club was plucky enough to go out and take them on anyway. And with a $5,000 investment from their founder, they created a cheaply produced, highly satirical ad that spoke directly to their consumers' personality and their pain points. They pointed the finger at the market leader Gillette for their overpriced blades and unnecessary features, and they challenged men, suggesting that their competitors were pulling the wool over their eyes and that they needed to do something about it. They were smarter than that. They didn't need the wool pulled over their eyes, and they didn't need to spend so much on razor blades, and they didn't need to have all of those features. With their straight talking, logical and humorous approach, they made a noise to the tune of $1 billion, which Unilever bought them for just 5 years later. They went on and stole over 50% of the online razor blade market. So think of your industry here. How does this apply to your brand that you're building? Can you go out into the industry and point the finger at a competitor or a group of competitors for what they're doing wrong and the pain points that your audience has associated with that? Differentiation strategy example number 3 is Mailchimp, and their strategic approach was just to simplify their brand. Now, Mailchimp had already established itself with broad brand awareness by being one of the first ever user-friendly email marketing software options. But when so many competitors came onto the market to steal their market share away from them, they decided to rebrand to highlight their differentiation strategy. In a sea of corporate blue and complicated competitors, Mailchimp went against the grain with their bright and simple and quirky illustrations and overly simple language and tone. Now, this level of simplification gives newbie entrepreneurs an obvious choice for their first email software, and it really does look, act, and feel different to anything in their space. Now, although part of their rebrand included some new features, for the most part, they didn't really change anything that they were doing. They still kept a lot of the same features and just made a few minor adjustments. And the reason that that's so important is in highlighting that differentiation is just as much about brand expression as it is about product or service alternatives. So how does this apply to the brand that you're building? Can you unclutter your industry by simplifying and making it easy for your audience? Or can you just simplify your brand expression to be more relevant? Differentiation strategy example number 4 is Whole Foods, and their strategic approach was to niche down on scale. Now, niching down doesn't mean that you can't become a big brand. A lot of entrepreneurs are very fearful of niching down because it does require their brand to turn their back on one or more market segments in order to be more relevant to the chosen market segment that they've identified. But niching down allows a brand to be more relevant, and it's possible to reach some niches on a huge scale. Now, Whole Foods are the undisputed heavyweight champions of the organic and natural food market because they were able to niche down and then scale up. Now, although there were many small stores providing organic and natural food options to that market segment, there was a gap wide open for a brand to come in and offer such a service on scale in the mold of a traditional grocery store. Since they've been acquired by Amazon for $13.7 billion, they now have an economic moat around their differentiation strategy, which allows them to dominate due to that scale. Now, is this an idea that you can take into the brand that you're building? Now, you might not yet have the resources for such scale, but can you be more relevant to a smaller market segment to increase your relevancy? And if so, can you scale with this market segment later on? Differentiation strategy example number 5 is Tyson's Foods, and their strategic approach was to rebrand an entire category. Now, Tyson's is another brand that's gone through an impressive facelift in recent years, but Tyson differentiated one of their products in a very unique way. Now, to suggest that you offer your customers an innovative product is a very easy thing to suggest, but it's not always possible. But what most certainly is possible is how you name that product. Now, Tyson's is one of the world's largest producers of meat in the world, and when they began selling chickens that were smaller than the average chicken, they had a choice to just go ahead and sell them as small chickens, or to come up with an entire new name for that category, and so Cornish game hens was born. Now, this name is a lot more catchy and memorable than small chickens, and I know this is a very unique example, but how can you apply this idea in your brand building efforts? Can you go out and ruffle a few feathers in your market and create an entirely new category name and then plop your product in the middle of that category name as first in class? Differentiation strategy example number 6 is Paul Smith, and Paul Smith's strategic approach is to leverage their heritage and origin. Now, it's difficult to think of a brand more quintessentially British than men's designer outfit Paul Smith in London, and the multicolored stripes of their brand identity along with the British flag are the most recognizable elements of the entire brand. Now, Paul Smith himself is actually a very proud Brit, and he was even knighted by Queen Elizabeth in 2000. And everything about the brand speaks to their proud British heritage, and they leverage the characteristics that comes with this association. The British flag is a familiar theme throughout the product line, and the association with tradition doesn't just add a sense of style, but it also adds a sense of security and trust as well. So how could you go about applying this to the brand that you're building? Can you leverage heritage or origin, and can you use that to build a sense of style or build a sense of trust or connection to where that heritage is from? Now, these examples are just a drop in the ocean, and there are countless ways to differentiate your brand from your competitors. But these examples do leverage both uniqueness and creativity. And when it comes to defining the differentiation strategy for your brand, that's what you need to do. You need to have your creative thinking cap on, and you also have your strategic thinking cap on, and you use those two together. But what about you? What about your experience? What is the best example of differentiation that you've seen in the market? Are you going out and building a brand at the moment, and have you created a unique differentiation strategy yourself, or are you planning to build a differentiation strategy for your own brand or for the brand of a client? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know any examples that you like. If you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments as well. I'll do my best to answer all of those questions. If you like this video, if it was helpful, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.